it's not beauty that's in the eye of the beholder. So if there is objective beauty, then it's not beauty that's in the eye of the beholder, but it's the perception of beauty that's in the eye of the beholder.
Muchas veces como cristianos tendemos a enfocarnos solamente en lo que es verdad y cómo eso nos lleva a Dios. Pero la verdad es que Dios nos ha dado otras herramientas, otras cosas en su creación para llevarnos a Él, tales como justamente la belleza y la bondad, aquello que es bueno. ¿Cómo estos dos aspectos de la realidad también nos pueden llevar a Dios?
Yeah, philosophers talk about these three, what are called transcendentals. It's a big word, right? The categories are truth, goodness, and beauty. They're called transcendentals because it's the idea that these categories kind of transcend all the other categories, and we find truth, goodness, and beauty in all kinds of other areas of life. And there's a kind of a convergence. These things come together in various ways, and there's a dynamic interplay between them. And so beauty is one of these important categories, or this transcendental category that we see all throughout life, and it has I think a very powerful way of pointing us to God. But I think first what we need to recognize is that there is objective beauty, meaning there is beauty that is beautiful, whether you think it's beautiful or not. We often say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And what we're saying is beauty is merely subjective. Whatever I as an individual think is beautiful, well, then that makes it beautiful for me. And this is relativism. Instead of moral relativism, it's what we would call aesthetic relativism, right? And this is just the default view of most people, even most Christians. But so what we're going to need to do is make an argument for objective beauty. That's the first step here. We've got to help convince people that there's objective beauty. And I think the way to do this is to simply give clear case examples. And so you hold up something that's ugly, that's really ugly, and then you hold up something that's really beautiful. And you say, is there a difference between these two things? So for instance, imagine this scene in your mind, a dirty alleyway in a big city where there's just trash everywhere and there's graffiti and broken down buildings. And okay, that's one scene. Now imagine another scene. You're standing at the top of a snow-capped mountain and you're just overlooking other mountains, and it's this majestic kind of scene, mountaintop scene, and you're looking over trees and forests and rivers and valleys. Okay, now take those two scenes. And the question is the second scene more beautiful than the first scene, than the alley? And then you just wait for the answer. Like, okay, when you behold those things, can you not just see that one is beautiful and the other is ugly? And if someone says, well, it's still in the eye of the beholder, I'm not sure what else to say at that point. I except to point back again. Or maybe to give a different example. Okay, here's a painting, and it's a painting by a guy named Simon Fujiwara. And what he did, it's called No Milk Today. And what he did is, while cows were lactating, he put a canvas underneath them and let them go to the bathroom on the canvas. There was cow excrement on the canvas, took them out and let it dry. That's art. Okay, now take any piece from maybe the Renaissance, or take Michelangelo's, Sistine Chapel, or the Mona Lisa, or, something that's been considered a masterpiece, and compare it to No Milk for Today, right? And you just put them side by side, and you say, is there any difference between these two? And not only is there any difference, but is one more beautiful than the other? You just hold up clear case examples. It's very similar to how you'd make a case for objective morality. right? You hold up clear case examples. You hold up Mother Teresa and you hold up Hitler. Is there any, is one more, or is one objectively right and one objectively wrong? Is it objectively better to help people with your life or to murder people, right? In the same way, that's what we're doing with the art. We're just trying to give clear case examples. And if someone can't recognize that a majestic mountain scene is objectively more beautiful than a dirty alley, then that doesn't follow that there's not objective beauty. I think what it means is that person's ability to perceive beauty is broken. Their faculty, their ability to see something that's objectively beautiful is impaired in some way. Just like if you can't say that there's a difference between their Mother Teresa, then your moral perception is broken. And so that would be one of my arguments for beauty, is that, hey, there's objective beauty and we can simply see it, right? And there's other arguments we could make, but that's what we want to establish first, that there's objective beauty in the world. Now, a lot of times the objection is, well, okay, all right, let me throw up 50 pictures or 50 paintings by all kinds of different artists. Okay, now, which one is more objectively beautiful? Well, that's a secondary question. The first question is there objective beauty? And you have to answer that question first before you can even answer this second question. Well, which piece of art is the more beautiful piece of art? And of course, I would say that's a more difficult question, but it doesn't follow that even if I can't, tell you, oh, this art's better than this art and this one's more objectively beautiful than that one, even if I can't tell you that, it doesn't mean that there's not objective beauty. Just like in the same way, there are moral dilemmas. And just because I can't give you the precise right, answer in every moral situation, it doesn't mean that it doesn't follow that there aren't objective moral truths. This is why you start with the clear case examples, because what that does is it establishes the fact that there's objective beauty. No matter whether or not I can tell you every instance of objective beauty. All right, so now if there's objective beauty, and actually before I go to the next step, let me just say this objection of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think what we want to say is it's not beauty that's in the eye of the beholder. So if there is objective beauty, then it's not beauty that's in the eye of the beholder, but it's the perception of beauty that's in the eye of the beholder. And so this is where some of the subjective elements may enter in. So my ability to perceive beauty is where there's some subjectivity, because each person has different experiences. They've been raised differently. They've been exposed to maybe more beauty or less beauty, or maybe they've even developed a taste for ugliness by what they watch and what they listen to. And so those kind of elements will play a role in your ability to perceive what's beautiful. It'll affect your ability to see beauty. And so that's where we'd want to say, okay, that's where subjectivity enters into it. It affects your ability to perceive it. But to perceive what is objectively already there, okay? Now then the question becomes, all right, if there is objective beauty, where does it come from? So here's the effect, right? Objectively beautiful things in the world, whether it's a painting or whether it's music or whether it's a scene from the natural world, whatever it might be, you've got these instances of beauty, objective beauty. That leads to the question, okay, that's the effect. What's the cause? And the cause has to be sufficient to give us that effect. And that's where we'd say beauty, objective beauty, points to, I think, an objectively beautiful person, and that would be God himself. And we see this in the scriptures that, the psalmist talks about gazing upon the beauty of the Lord. We see God's attention to detail in his instructions to the Israelites in building the tabernacle. This is going to be the place that houses their worship of God, right? And he just gives all this detail in the Old Testament about how to construct that place and put gold in there and put jewels in there. Well, there's no pragmatic purpose for that. I mean, it's not useful. No, but God he's interested in more than just, what's useful. He's interested in beauty, because what beauty does is it points. It just like morality points, just like the natural world points away from itself to something else. The universe around us is constantly pointing us to the source of everything that exists. And beauty points to the beautiful one. Morality points to the moral one, the holy one. The beginning of the universe points to the beginner. The design of the universe points to the designer. So beauty turns out to be another argument for the existence of God. In order for there to be objective beauty, we need a transcendent source of beauty that is itself has the ability to ground beauty, is beautiful in and of itself. And that's God.